What's going on, everyone? It's another episode of the WVSports.com podcast. I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by, as always, the one and only Keenan Cummings. It was not a great start for the Mountaineers, as they have now lost 2 games in a row for the first time this season, this time on the wrong end of a 73-60 loss to Kansas State. So, Keenan, let's just cut to the chase. Is it time to panic for this West Virginia basketball team?
Maybe not panic, but I'm concerned. I think most of us felt, whether we were off the euphoria of the Iowa State win or just what they had overcome to this point in the season, that this was going to be a good week for West Virginia. Hell, I predicted them to go 2-0. It was the exact opposite. I think that this loss was probably more concerning to me than the loss against Arizona State, because I think the first half, West Virginia just didn't even look like they had effort out there. And I hate saying that because it's cliche. We're sitting here watching the game. We're not playing. But that Kansas State pretty much did whatever they wanted. They were up 19-2. West Virginia, they went over 6 minutes without scoring. I think it was 7 minutes without a field goal. Just rough basketball. I think at half they shot 23% overall. They let Kansas State shoot 53%. That's not winning basketball. You're not going to win very many games doing that. And this is a team that has relied on their defense a lot. They're challenged offensively. I think teams are starting to figure out, you double small off those screens, and it's tough because West Virginia's not getting a lot out of their guards or other people on the floor right now. So, yeah, I think there's reason for concern right now because, this happens, in college basketball. Teams have stretches, you'll go through some difficult stretches, but, that's what coaches are paid for. You got to adjust, you got to find some things that work, and that's going to be the challenge. We've talked a lot about how Darren DeVries has really seemingly pushed the right buttons with this team, even with all the challenges all throughout this year. This is the first time I've felt that, something's got to change a little bit because the blueprint's there. And teams are really trying to make it hard on Javon Small, and they need some of these other guys to step up. They're not going to win a basketball game if the supporting casts are not scoring or not a threat to score. And, it's tough to point out individual players because, every game's different. But West Virginia's got to get more from Jonathan Powell. They got to get more from KJ Tenner, and that's not fair. They're true freshmen. But that's the role they have to play right now with the injuries on this basketball team. And it's not just them either. Monty Hansberry's got to shoot the ball better. This team is so much better when he's hitting shots. And when he's not, it's tough. I think that overall, this was just a kind of a mess. West Virginia got down early, and I think they did play much better in the second half on both ends of the floor at times. The offense actually seemed to have a little bit of a rhythm. They were passing the ball pretty well. There was better spacing. And then it bogged down again, late in the second half. So West Virginia made a couple runs in this game, but to you, did it ever feel like they were going to get back into it? Because it never did to me.
Yeah, it never really felt like they had that kind of big run left in them. I mean, even when they kind of got it close there, the offense just went dry. Twice in the first half, they had a 5+ minute stretch without a bucket. And
those are too frequent, man. Those are happening way too frequent.
Yeah. I went back and counted, I believe, at halftime. And so against Arizona State, they had that obviously like almost 14 minutes. It felt like a game time or 10 minutes, I think, of game time. And then they did it against Iowa State. They did it twice against Houston, and they did it against Arizona, where there's been at least stretches of 5 minutes without a made field goal. That's just not a recipe for winning basketball, especially in this league. And you're right. They've got to get more from others on offense. It's a little concerning, especially from Hansberry, how up and down he's been recently. I know that he was dealing with the foot, and now it seems to be like he's on the good side of that. But 2 of 11 tonight just really won't cut it. I mean, Sincere Harris, 12 points, 6 of 12 from the field. You really don't want him shooting that many shots. But at some point, someone's got to shoot him if no one's making them. And it seems to be that it might be him right now.
Yeah, and to his credit, at least he was aggressive and got the ball to the rim. Him and Oconee both. Both those guys, they chipped in. Yeah, I know Oconee was limited with foul trouble in this game, which really kind of hurt them because I thought he played pretty well, especially defensively. He got some tough matchups again with some bigger guys. But, at least they were being aggressive. There's too many people right now that are being passive, and they need guys to hit shots. Javon
Yeah,
Small is getting so much attention right now that, yes, he's incredible. Yes, he's still going to score. But I think the difference between these past two games and what you saw against Iowa State, West Virginia's had scoring trouble all season at times. They've gone through these droughts, but the difference is they've been able to generate stops. They've not stopped anybody. And well, they did a little bit in the second half against Kansas State, but the second half of Arizona State and the first half of Kansas State is the worst defense that this team's played all year. And that's what I'm concerned about. And you worry about, maybe the minutes are taking a toll. Maybe the grind of the season is taking a toll. But something's got to change because West Virginia is not in the NCAA tournament right now. I know it might feel like it to some people with some of the wins they have. And I know that, that's big picture. I'm looking ahead. But I think if you're circling a magic number to guarantee that West Virginia makes the field, they got to win 6 more games. And if they play like they did in the second half against Arizona State, or if they play like they did tonight, I don't see 6 wins on the schedule. So now I know that's being a little bit of, hyperbole there because, we've seen this team bounce back, but they've got to play better. I think that Darren DeVries knows that. He talked about post game. It's not acceptable, how they played in the first half, especially defensively. That's kind of been their trademark: toughness, grit, getting it done defensively, getting defensive rebounds, getting out in transition, getting some baskets. West Virginia was doubled up in transition points in this game, fast break points. And I think they've done a pretty good job this year stopping teams from getting out and running. But it seemed like Kansas State was just dunking and getting out for layups quite a bit in this game. Some of that was bad shots. Some of it was turnovers. They frustrated West Virginia at times. I give Hansberry a little bit of leniency because I feel like there were 3 or 4 times he just had to shoot it because the shot clock was running down. And there were way too many possessions like that for this team. Not enough ball movement, not enough people moving and getting in the right spots and kind of creating opportunities. And that's been the biggest issue for West Virginia offensively.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of stopping and staring and waiting for Javon Small to do something, especially on the offensive end, and that just won't cut it right now because, K-State was rolling 2-3 guys to Javon almost every single possession, especially in that first half. And it's the dog days of January, truthfully, and they played this gauntlet early on, and they were able to survive that going 4-2 in the Big 12. But now that might be catching up to them, especially on their legs. There's a lot of minutes on these guys that are playing a lot because there's not a lot of depth with this team right now, so these guys are having to play with a lot. But one thing that's concerning to me is just the way this team's shooting from beyond the arc. This is 2 games in a row now that it's just been pick
8
a
for
word.
50.
Yeah, it's bad. And
some of those are open shots. Some of them aren't, but some are just step in open shots, and guys just aren't hitting shots right now. And that's not good.
Yeah, 1 of 15 outside of Javon Small from 3 tonight. The only make was from Money. KJ's, it looked like it was going to fall and then just kind of rimmed
Yeah, I thought
out.
that was a good shot.
I thought it was too. They're getting good looks sometimes, but it just seems like overall it's just stagnant offense that is guys kind of just waiting, looking around, who's going to make a play and reacting instead of making others react to them. And that seems like to be a little bit different, especially from even take that Kansas game for the example where they took it to their opponent. And I think Darren DeVries has talked about that at length this year of we have to be the aggressors. And it seems like for the second straight game, Keenan, West Virginia has been the team that has been bullied in a sense, especially on the offensive glass, especially too when defenses are dictating West Virginia's offense rather than West Virginia's offense dictating West Virginia's offense.
Yeah, and I go back again to defense as well. It's just a concern for me. They're not getting stops, and if this team cannot get stops, they're going to struggle to win basketball games. And I thought the second half was much better, but that's not saying much considering how bad the first half was. They cannot have that type of effort defensively. They just can't. This is not, Darren DeVries has made it very clear this whole year. This team has very small margin, and they have to do certain things each game to win. They didn't do any of that in this game, at least for the entire first half. And by the time they kind of woke up a little bit, the game was practically decided. I know they made a run to make it interesting, but, well, interesting in quotations, but it doesn't look as bad as a 13-point loss, but this game was pretty much dominated by Kansas State from the start to the finish. It just is a really
never led. It was tied once, and when it was 2-2, and then that was it.
Yeah, it was a frustrating performance for West Virginia because you got some rest. After that Arizona State game, you felt that, I know winning on the road is tough. I don't care where it is in the Big 12, it's tough. I don't care how bad the teams are, it's tough. You saw that against Colorado. You see that obviously against Kansas State. It's tough to win on the road in this league. I mean, just ask Iowa State. It's tough, but there's no excuse for the way that they played tonight. This is the first game. I thought the Arizona State game was ugly, but this is the first game where I was like, I'm getting a little concerned. So we'll see. This team has responded well up until this point. So we'll see how they kind of weather this storm. And Houston's coming to Morgantown next. That's not going to be easy, but you got to find a way to stop this. These losses can pile up quickly in this league. Just look at Kansas State. They hadn't won a game in 2025. They lost 6 straight. And they opened beating Cincinnati. So obviously they have some talent. I do think that basketball team's getting better. They played pretty well tonight for the most part.
I mean, that team's a rich team.
They should play well.
Yeah.
But West Virginia didn't help matters at all. So I don't want to make any excuses here at all. It's just a disappointing performance and not one that I expected at all. The Arizona State loss was shocking to me. This one even more so, even being on the road, because I really felt that with what this team has shown to this point, that this was going to be a game that might have been hard fought and had to earn it. But I'm really surprised they didn't come out with a win.
Yeah, I'm interested to see too. This is really going to affect negatively the West Virginia and the net rankings, and obviously that's a key metric that is used. But they were sliding after that Arizona State game. I think they entered that night 30th, and they were 37th as of today. I just looked up the updated KenPom. They're now 50th in KenPom, and they were top 40-ish, 41, 42, I think, enter in this week. So things like that can change in a hurry, especially when there's a committee that uses these rankings to look at it. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there is a clear line of if you're ranked by XX in the net, you make the NCAA tournament last year if you're a Power 4 team. And West Virginia is creeping up as if they continue to slide on that number. Obviously, with every win that you get from here on out because of the quality of your league, that'll help. But Kansas State was the second worst team in the Big 12 in the net. And so I think 118 they were, Keenan. And so this is a tough loss for the computers as well, not just the on-paper performance of the box score.
Yeah, I think that this is your first, the Arizona State loss was disappointing, but this is your first really bad loss of the year, at least right now. Who knows how the net is fluid. Who knows how teams are going to move up, move down. But I think that when you think about what happened tonight, really, to me, it's about the response. What comes next? I know Houston's tough, but you cannot let this spiral. We talked about on the last podcast, Wes, about the upcoming schedule. It's not easy. You can't let this spiral into a 5-6 game losing streak. You just cannot do it at this point. And they're going to have to play markedly better than they did tonight.
Yeah, looking at KenPom right now, West Virginia, 26% chance to beat Houston, 35% chance to beat Cincinnati on the road, and then a 49% chance to beat TCU on the road. So if all that holds, we're looking at a 5-game losing streak heading into a 2-game homestand the second week of February. And so the things could get really noisy, really start pressing if you're searching for wins desperately come February and March. But transitioning now to the football front before we hop off tonight. Mountaineers, after signing their transfer portal class, as Keenan said, they will continue to add throughout the remainder of the spring, and they did that with the addition of Jeff Weimer, a wide receiver who started his career at Hartnell College on the junior college ranks, then moved to the City College of San Francisco. Then he signed with UNLV and then to Idaho State. So he's a well-traveled man. Keenan, what can you tell us about him?
Yeah, West Virginia needed to get another wide receiver. I think we talked about that on our podcast going over the transfer portal guys. And, Weimer's an experienced guy. He's played a lot. Obviously, he's been at 4 different schools, but he's really been productive on a per-snap basis pretty much at every destination he's been at. He went for 2,000 yards in both of his junior college seasons. And last year was really productive for the Bengals. He had 75 catches. I think it was 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's a guy that's played inside and out in his career. I imagine that West Virginia will probably use him a little bit at both. But, he played 844 snaps last year, graded out pretty solid at Idaho State, was pretty productive when they threw him the football. He was a guy that was on my radar just because he was a late offer. West Virginia, I think, offered him January 15th, the day after he entered the transfer portal, and he didn't post any other offers. Now, I don't know if he made it to campus or when he made it to campus because that stuff is kind of, hit or miss. But there had to be something there. And it did not surprise me in the slightest that West Virginia got him. He's a guy that I was kind of keeping an eye out just in case they could get announced with the transfer class. Because some of these guys, like, Jason Chambers, some of them commit and don't even go through the hoopla of having an announcement. They've already been at several different schools. So, but West Virginia got him. I think he has 1 year left. Who knows with the junior college stuff, if that goes to effect. I don't know about the clock or any of that, but another experienced wide receiver. It's their 5th wide receiver transfer edition. They're still recruiting some high school kids. I know there's some official visitors on campus this weekend, a couple from South Carolina, an offensive lineman from Ohio, and I think a wide receiver from Florida that I know of. So they're going to continue to add. Don't fret. There's going to be a lot more additions, a lot more movement in and out of this thing as West Virginia kind of pieces this together. But overall, I think, anytime you can get an experienced wide receiver, he has production, he's played a lot. It's kind of what they needed. I'm interested to see how they utilize him, because I said he's played inside, outside. So that brings some versatility to the board. But they just need guys. They have to rebuild that room. They have to rebuild the offensive line room, the DB room. They need guys that have been productive. And, he's going to get a chance to prove that, that he was pretty good at UNLV when he played. He only played in 7 games, but when he was on the field, caught the ball. So he's done it at UNLV. Now, can he do it in the Big 12? I'm not sure 1,000 yards is in the range of outcomes, but can he be a productive piece of this offense? I think we're going to find out. So good addition. I believe that Vernon said, I had been trying to contact him. I hadn't had any luck, but Vernon said he's going to be enrolling Monday. So he'll be on campus for the spring, which would be big. So all that's good news for West Virginia.
Yeah, 6'2", 200 pounds roughly. So, good size, good strength, and experience. And I think that's the big thing that you're starting to see across the board is that they're really going after experience. We've seen it from the last regime, them go after experience, especially on defense, and it didn't work out so hot. But new regime, new trust, new all of that. So with that, we will probably end it here. West Virginia versus Houston. And talk about a desperation mode at home, Keenan. That's what it'll be. Wednesday night, 7:00. Hopefully you can make it out to this one. I think Darren DeVries is probably hoping too, based off of your record from home in their home games. But until then, we will keep it locked on our website, WVSports.com, as well as all of our social media channels. I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by Keenan Cummings. If you made it this far, we do appreciate listening. And this was the WestVirginiaSports.com podcast.